Is the new 20th anniversary deluxe edition of Linkin Park's Meteora worth a listen? Let's find out. Hey everybody, it's Nick here with you. Welcome back to the Rock Squad channel and welcome to my rock album review of the 20th anniversary deluxe edition of Linkin Park's classic second album, Meteora. Before we get to it, guys, if you love to rock out as much as we do here on the Rock Squad channel, make sure to smash that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future videos. Make sure to like this video. We'd appreciate that. And make sure to share this video online with your friends and fellow rock fans. Meteora is Linkin Park's sophomore album from 2003, the follow-up to their debut album, Hybrid Theory. If that doesn't make you feel old, that this album is already 20 years old, and I don't know what will. But yeah, this is a classic album released back in 2003. It was very much a big hit record when it came out originally 20 years ago, and now they were celebrating it with a 20th anniversary deluxe edition, which features a lot of material, which I'll get to in just a little bit. But like I said, this was the follow-up to Hybrid Theory and featured some of Linkin Park's biggest singles at the time, some of their biggest hits. This album is loaded with a lot of hits. It had songs like Somewhere I Belong and Faint and Numb and Breaking the Habit. A lot of Linkin Park's biggest songs come from the Meteora album. It was a big record for them. Obviously, there was a big boom in nu metal and rap rock at the time when Linkin Park was on the cutting edge of that scene when it was really blowing up back in the early 2000s. I remember that time. I was in college at the time when this album came out, and I remember a lot of the bands and a lot of the music of that scene. When it comes to Linkin Park themselves, I wouldn't say that I'm a huge fan of the band, but there are a lot of things that I really enjoy about them. Obviously, I think that Chester Bennington was an incredible vocalist and songwriter. He is one of the most missed figures in the world of rock music. When we lost him, that was a huge blow to the world of rock music. So Chester Bennington is somebody who is absolutely an incredible artist, and I love all the music that he does. He had an incredible voice, and he was just an incredible songwriter that is greatly missed. But then I also like Mike Shinoda as the co-vocalist and kind of rapper of Linkin Park. I think that Mike Shinoda is a really talented artist as well. And since Linkin Park I guess they've kind of split up since Chester Bennington passed away, I think Mike Shinoda has kind of come into his own as an artist and as a producer, and I really like a lot of his music. I really like the song In My Head, which he just released from the Scream 6 soundtrack. I think that was absolutely fantastic. So I was looking forward to listening to this album. I think the last time maybe if I've ever listened to this album in full, it was all the way back in 2003. So it's been a good 20 years that I heard a lot of the album tracks on this album. Obviously, I'm familiar with the singles, but it's been a long time since I listened to Meteora, so I was looking forward to digging into the new album, and not just the original album, but also this huge deluxe edition that they've just released to celebrate the 20th anniversary. And talk about a deluxe edition. When it comes to deluxe editions of records, we've seen lots of them in the past. Obviously, they're usually a mix of the original album with some rarities and B-sides and live tracks and demos, which is precisely what Linkin Park have done on this deluxe edition. And they've really included a plethora of materials that if you're a Linkin Park fan, a diehard fan, there's a lot of stuff to dig into here as well. Some unreleased tracks which they've just released, which I think are just as strong as anything that they put out on the actual album, but we'll get to that in just a second. But take a look at this deluxe edition. They really put everything, the entire kitchen sink into the track list of this deluxe edition. So you have the OG Meteora album, which is again fantastic. We'll review that in a second. But then you have some live albums on here as well. Live in Nottingham from '03 in England, live in Texas back in 2003 as well. There's the LPU Rarities disc, there's the Live Rarities disc, and there's the Lost Demos disc. And for the purposes of this review, I decided to kind of sift through the material a little bit. It's a long listening experience to listen to everything. So the purposes of this review, I've decided to review the original OG Meteor album, and then I dug a little bit into the Lost Demos because I think that's the stuff that I'm most interested in as a music fan. Whenever a band I like puts out a deluxe edition, I'm always really looking for the stuff that I've never heard before. Demos and live tracks are really cool, rarities, but I'm always looking for those songs that are absolutely new to these deluxe editions. So that's what I've done with this Meteora review. So without further ado, let's get to my review. First, we're going to do the OG album, and then we'll do some stuff from the Lost Demos. So when it comes to the OG Meteora album, of course, this album is a classic in the nu metal and rap rock and just alternative rock category. It's one of the best albums of its era. We know that. Like I said, there's tons of hit singles on here and tons of songs that Linkin Park has become known for over the years that are on this album. So it's definitely a strong album from the get-go. Like I said, I haven't listened to this album in a very long time, so it was really enjoyable to sit down and listen to some of the stuff from 20 years ago when I was a much younger man and I was in college at the time. But let's take a look at this track listing and some of the songs from Meteora that I really enjoyed. First up, we have the song Don't Stay. Now, this was a heavy rocker that really set the tone for this album. It's very much a Linkin Park album. It's the mix of those heavy elements along with the electronic elements and some of those nu metal elements mixed with Mike Shinoda's more rap rock vocals, and then mixed with Chester Bennington's more melodic but still really heavy as fuck voice, which he really hit some crazy vocal highs on this album. He was really at the peak of his talents. The whole band was when they were making this record. So I love Don't Stay as an opening song. Somewhere I Belong, which is a huge hit for the band. That was really a hit single and still really kicks ass when you listen to it 20 years later. The production on this album is still really strong. Lying From You, this had a great vocal from Mike Shinoda, and again, somebody that I've really come to really appreciate more over the last little while than I did maybe at the time. When I was listening to this album back in 2003, I wasn't really into the nu metal and rap rock stuff at the time. I was really looking back at the time and listening to a lot of classic rock when I was in college, and so I wasn't really super into this album when it came out. I listened to it, but it's something that I've definitely appreciated more over time. Easier to Run is actually one of my favorite songs on this album. I think this is one of the favorite songs that I listened to on this re-listen. Really, when I was listening to this album, I was discovering a lot of songs that I didn't really know very well, and that is one of them. And then we get to Faint, which I think is one of my favorite Linkin Park songs, one of their best singles that they've ever released. It still kicks a lot of ass. I love the production on that song, and I think, yeah, it's probably one of the best songs that Linkin Park ever did. I love Faint. Then we get into Breaking the Habit, which is, again, one of my favorite Linkin Park songs. A little bit different, a little bit more chilled out than some of the other songs in this album, but there's just something about the song Breaking the Habit. I just love the vibe, and I love the production on that song. Still one of my favorite Linkin Park songs. And then we get into some of the other album tracks on this album that I'm not really as familiar with as I am with the singles. There's Nobody's Listening, that had more of a hip-hop, cool vibe. I love the flute on that. We get to Hit the Floor, which again is kind of standard Linkin. There are some just kind of standard middle of the road kind of Linkin Park songs on this album, and that's okay. When you have so many tracks, I think there's 13 or 14 songs on this album. When you have so many tracks, there's a little bit of filler, and there are some songs on here that I felt like were a little bit of filler. Hit the Floor was one of those. Figure 09 was one of those. Like, it has more of those electronic elements, and a lot of the songs have that same combination of elements that can affect your listening experience and how, what your mileage is with Linkin Park as a band. From the inside, I love Chester's vocals on that. They really soar on this album. Chester Bennington's vocals are absolutely incredible. Sessions, which was more of an instrumental track with scratches and production, really like that. And for the whole album Meteora, I think it's a fantastic record and something that I appreciate a lot more now than I would have back in 2003, and it was definitely a fun listening experience to check it out again on this deluxe edition. I'm not sure what they did in terms of remastering or doing anything like that. They didn't remix the album. I'm not sure if there's much of a remaster on here, but it still sounds fantastic, and the production is really cool. The only thing, maybe my criticism of this album as a whole, that 20 years later, some of it does sound a little bit dated. As we know, back in 2003 and back when the early 2000s, a lot of those rap rock and nu metal bands were around, they all had DJs doing different things. Incubus had the same thing going on, and sometimes 20 years later, not a lot of bands include record scratches as part of their production, as part of their songs, and so it makes this album sound particularly a little bit dated. And I know for some of those bands, and maybe for Linkin Park as well, that when you have somebody who does scratching as part of the band, they've moved more into a keyboard and synth role, which I know that the original scratcher for Incubus has done as well, DJ Kilmore. So I know that it's possible. It makes it sound a little bit dated, but otherwise this album is absolutely loaded with hits. It's a classic of the nu metal and like the rap rock era. I don't like saying rap rock or nu metal. It's really just alternative rock, but definitely one of the best albums of that era, and it's just loaded with hits. So the actual OG Meteora album, I'm going to give a solid 4 out of 5. But then we get into the bonus discs from this album. As I said, there is a lot of material to go through, and if you're a casual Linkin Park fan like myself, I just wanted to sift through and kind of give things a little bit of a listen. I didn't really listen to too many of the live tracks or the other rarities or the demos. There are some demos on here of some of the better known tracks from Meteora, so it's always really cool if you're a big fan to dig back in and see how the band went through their writing and demoing process before they got to the final product. I always find that something that's really interesting, and they did. I don't know what else they would have left left from the vaults after releasing this deluxe edition, because it really seems like they got to the bottom of everything that they have in the vault. But there are some new songs on here that they didn't release back in 2003, and I'm surprised that they didn't, because these are really strong songs, a lot better than they have any right to be as extra songs on a deluxe edition. So I really did get into the lost demos, as they're called. And this is the stuff that I really enjoyed, because, you know, like I was saying, when it comes to the deluxe edition, I want to hear songs that I've never really heard before, and they did that on this, and that includes the song Lost, which was a recent single that they released. I think this is a really strong song. Again, you're wondering, why didn't they put this out back in 2003? Why wait 20 years to put this out on a deluxe edition? But I'm sure the band has their own reasons. But Lost was a really, really strong song. It's really cool to hear Chester doing some stuff that we've never heard before. I think that's maybe one of the best things about listening to this deluxe edition, because unfortunately, rest in peace, Chester Bennington is no longer with us. But to hear him doing stuff on songs that we've never heard is, I think, a real gift to Linkin Park fans, and I think that's something that really is going to appeal to fans of this deluxe edition. Fighting Myself, I thought, was a great song, great vocal from Mike Shinoda on this. Again, he's somebody that I've come to really appreciate more over the last little while than I did probably back in the day. Had a great riff on it. More Than a Victim, Massive, Healing Foot. These are really, really strong songs, stronger than you would expect on a Lost Demos disc or a Lost Songs disc from a deluxe edition. But I'm really, really happy with that Linkin Park released so much of this music for people to enjoy, because I'm a casual fan, but for the hardcore Linkin Park fans that are out there who love all the band's material, I can really see this being really enjoyable. There's a lot of unreleased material on this album that is going to make Linkin Park fans happy. And as somebody who just loves when bands release a treasure trove of unreleased material, I think this is really cool. So I'm going to give the Lost Demos disc from Linkin Park's Meteora 20th Anniversary Edition, I'm going to give this a solid 4 out of 5 as well. Yes, so overall, the OG album, Meteora, that came out 20 years ago, still stands up today. I know some of it sounds a little bit dated with the record scratches, but that's just a relic of the time that it came out, and a lot of bands are doing similar things. And obviously, Linkin Park evolved a lot more after the Meteora album, released a lot more material. But for an album of its time, it's definitely one of the best of that era. And like I said, I give the original album a 4 out of 5. And then when it comes to this deluxe edition, this huge treasure trove of material that Linkin Park have released on the Meteora 20th Anniversary Edition. There's just so much to enjoy here if you're a Linkin Park fan. Even if you're a casual fan like me and you have never really dug into the band's catalog, it's been a really enjoyable experience to really hear some of this music and some of this new stuff that they were holding on to. I don't know why they just didn't release it 20 years ago or at any point between then and now, because this is really strong material on the demos disc as well. And like I said, for Linkin Park fans out there, I think this is going to be a really enjoyable experience for you as you dig through this material. So I'm going to give the bonus disc, the Lost Demos disc. Sorry, I didn't listen to a lot of the live stuff, but I'm going to give that unreleased material that they put on here on the Meteora 20th Anniversary Deluxe Edition, I'm going to give that a solid 4 out of 5 as well. And that is it, guys. That is my review for the 20th Anniversary Deluxe Edition, that's a mouthful, of Linkin Park's classic album, Meteora. If you're a Linkin Park fan, if you're just a rock fan in general, hop into the comments below and let me know what you thought of the Deluxe Edition. Make sure to subscribe to us here on the Rock Squad channel so you don't miss out on future videos. And when it comes to rock music on this channel, we talk about all sorts of rock music. It's not just hard rock. It's not just metal. It's not just alternative. We talk about rock music in all its forms because I'm just a fan of everything under the rock music genre. So we talked about it all, so hopefully you'll stick with us here on the Rock Squad channel. Hit the subscribe button, like this video, share it online with your friends and fellow rock fans. Follow us on social media on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Rock Squad Pod. And you can check out my band as well if you're a fan of bands like Foo Fighters, Weezer, Jimmy Eat World, and Oasis. We're called Fools Union, and you can check us out at foolsunion.com. But until the next rock album review, guys, I'll see you again. My name is Nick, and until then, rock on, everybody.